Martin Kolar, my grandfather, was a remarkable man. When he passed away, my mother, Tammy, gave this moving eulogy at his funeral. Abba, what were you more? A fighter? A humanitarian? Self-educated? A loving and caring father? You began your life in a little town in faraway Slovakia, for which your love never faded. A son of an Orthodox family who in his teenage years joined the Shomer Tzair, becomes a counselor, and goes out to training before making Aliyah, and then the war breaks out. The Germans take Czechoslovakia and you boys form the youth group decided to go underground and fight. Someone turned you in and the authorities imprisoned you, where you were tortured terribly. You told us that not even a millimeter on your body was left with skin on it. Imprisonment was very long, and when the authorities were replaced, you were sent to a labor camp, from which you escaped and joined the partisans in the woods. You fought with the partisans almost the entire war when you were captured by the Nazis. Luckily, you were wearing an officer's uniform from the Slovakian army. You spoke German fluently, and 6 other languages as well, and you managed to convince the Germans that you were a language professor, and they believed you and even allowed you to receive a Bible from the POWs of the Jewish Brigade who were imprisoned in the same camp. After the war, on your way home, you even took the time to bring back to Slovakia its naval fleet, which had been confiscated by the Germans in order that they could smuggle supplies early in the war years into Yugoslavia. You voluntarily offered to do so and did exactly that. Back home, you did not find anybody. Your entire family had been exterminated in the Holocaust. Nobody survived. You swore that you would have revenge, that you would hunt the murderers until the very end. And indeed, you dedicated your entire life to this until you retired. First you joined the American Army in the newly freed territories of Europe, where you were hunting the Nazis and bringing them to trial at the Nuremberg trials. And years later, as a member of the special unit of the Israeli police, where you collected evidence and prepared the materials for the trial against the Nazi criminals. You never had any formal education, but you were always learning. You spoke 9 languages, you knew the Bible by heart, every name, every story, every chapter. You were an expert historian of every era and every year. You knew the names of every leader and were always able to tell us more than our history teachers taught. And I loved listening to your stories. I always envied you for your phenomenal memory and your vast knowledge. You were a big believer, first in Judaism, and when the world tried to destroy it, you adopted communism as a solution to the Jewish problem and the brotherhood of men. You found yourself in a communist prison during the Salansky trials. You were a true atheist, counting only on your common sense. You demanded so much of yourself and from your surroundings, a true perfectionist, and that of course wasn't easy, not for you and not for those around you. You believe with all your heart that there is a way to achieve peace with our neighbors, that there is a need to talk to them, to treat them in a humane fashion, and were so angry with our leaders who were not smart enough to do so. As a family man, your life was never easy. First losing your entire family, then building your own beautiful little family that you were only able to enjoy for a short few years, when a disease took your beloved wife from you. You were a devoted father. You completely devoted yourself to us, your children. We used to spend every weekend together in the woods, those wonderful woods you loved so much and taught us to love as well. You made sure that we studied, that we knew literature and music, 2 things which you really loved. Almost until your last days, you played and listened to music and endlessly read books. Reading always brought about interesting discussions between us, about literature, about literary styles, and about life itself. You refused to remarry until we were old enough to go into the army, and then you tied yourself with Nushi, with whom you spent the next 40 years, and who brought another branch of family to us, with grandchildren and great-grandchildren that you love so much. You were a loving and warm father, and a devoted and spoiling grandfather, especially when you could converse, enrich, and give. You never missed a birthday, always making sure to buy presents and always with a thought of what made us the happiest, but of course also what would also help us to learn and develop. It was very important to you that we would all be educated, become open-minded, acquire knowledge of world affairs and literature, art and music. But more than anything, you cared about us being human, that we would be able to see the world through other people's eyes and not only our own, and that we fight for the rights of every person to live in peace and harmony, causes you have fought for all your life, as you believe the world should be. Yes, you were especially a fighter and a big believer in the right of every man to be a master of their own will and destiny. And this you did now as well. You did not want to be dependent on anybody, and when you saw your powers leaving you, you closed your eyes and said goodbye. So we stand here today, all of your little family, which you have built with so much love, escorting you on the last leg of your journey with much love and admiration, and promise to try to be worthy and continue on your path.